Hello, screenwriters, and welcome to Writing for Screens, the screenwriting step-by-step project, episode 157. My name is Glenn Gers, and I come to you every Monday through Friday, if I can make it, at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And when I do that, I am letting you look over my shoulder, share my screen as I write a script. And I am doing this in order to teach a part of screenwriting that most teachers don't seem to spend much time on, which is the actual process of getting a script written, of getting from those rough ideas into an outline, into a draft, into a rewrite. And a lot of people are really good at teaching you what a great script would be like and great ideas for scripts, but they don't talk about the most important thing that makes a great script, which is existing, being written, having gotten the words onto the page in scenes with characters and dialogue. That's really hard if you are not used to doing it, and really pretty, not easy, but doable if you understand it's a process. It's step by step, page by page, line by line, and there are things that make that easier. So that's all I'm doing. I'm walking you through how I taught myself, what I figured out makes that easier to work out. It's not the best way. It's not the only way. It's just the way that I figured out in a 25-year career writing movies and TV. So I wanted to walk you through it in case it was helpful to you when you face the blank page. If it is helpful, use it. If it's not, don't. No problem. You don't have to. It's not like there's a secret that everyone works the same way. Figure out what's good for you. If some of these tricks that I'm showing you, some of these tools that I'm showing you are useful, take them. If not, just figure out what's good. Maybe they will help you to figure out what you would do that's very, very different. That's cool. Likewise, you don't have to watch all of these. It's 157 hours at this point. Watch what helps. Watch a little, see if it's interesting, if it's making you think, oh, that would be a cool thing to try. Great. Keep watching till you get tired and you say, no, I want to go write my thing. I don't need any more of this. Great. That's okay. Okay. Let me say hellos. Hello, Javier. Hello, Division 05. Oh, hi. What is that? What's that thing from the room? Oh, hi, Mark. Yeah, anyway. Yeah. The Michael Arndt endings video he's great. He keeps saying it's not a formula. Kind of is a formula, but it's a really good formula, and you should know all sorts of different formulae. That's great. And man, he's right about what he says in what he's saying. It's not every script, but it's certainly true about what he's trying to show you, that he's saying, hey, look at this. Isn't this cool? It's really cool. It's also really just enjoyably done. It's well done. So yeah, thank you. Hello, Dandelion. And yes, I got that joke. Okay, let's get right to work, because I've been thinking a lot about the problems that I am facing with scene 3. And one of the things, because scene 3, it's just a mess. It's the potential is there. I know that this scene will work, but right now it's not, and so I'm not able to make it work better because it's not working. Hi, Gene. So what I'm going to do is sort of take a step back from it. This afternoon I realized that's what's wrong here. Let's see what is okay. That's George's first scene. Okay, this is the scene that we're working on. And you can tell because I got way too much going on here. So the thing I wanted to sort of bring up right away is a basic idea. If you're stuck, what are you clinging to? And this is the question I started to ask myself. It's like, there's a lot of good stuff in this scene. Why am I not making it into a working scene? And I realized that the reason is because I was clinging to things. I had written stuff in the rough draft here, just sort of like putting down, oh, well, maybe they could talk about this. Maybe they could talk about this. Oh, they might say that. And now I'm kind of clinging to them. I'm sort of like, oh, well, I have to get that in. I don't. It's not that important. So I need to step back and say, well, what really, if I just have to get something done here, what is the thing I have to get done? So that's my first question. Then I will get to some of these. What do you think the philosophical stakes are? That's a good question. Can you speak to the contradictions between writing for different media? Hi, Science Year, by the way. A new voice. So yeah, I will get to those. Hi, B. Hi, Najo. Hi, Martletoso. Hello, good to see you again today. Yeah. All right. Very briefly, before I get into my thinking about this scene, what are the philosophical stakes of this series concept? Well, let's take a look at that because that's partly here in the overview. In the overview, I have a section here. I'm just scrolling down. This is the characters. And I put down just some thoughts which I have not really explored. Let me get to it. Gosh, I've got a lot of stuff here. Themes. Okay. Among the themes, which when you say philosophical stakes, I think of that as themes, thematic material, ideas. There is the issue of justice, which Dundosky is speaking for one part of, which is the idea of because crime crackers are hunting criminals, and so in a sense they are law people, justice seekers. Although truthfully, a lot of them are not doing it for that reason. But it brings up the question of what is just, especially when it comes to the question of the retired serial killer. That's an interesting theme because here's the thing. This person did evil and then he stopped. And he seems, at least at the moment, I have created this guy who seems to have kind of reformed. And the question then becomes, what do we do with him? We should not let him go unpunished because of this. And yet at the same time, we have to recognize that he is no longer the person that he was then. And I think that that's a legitimate question. I don't have the answer to it right now. I just raised it as this is going to be one of the questions of our story. Another question, and this is not McLean's at all, this is old, but the power of crowdsourcing, the question of crowdsourcing. Is it a good idea to crowdsource certain things like law enforcement or perhaps the media or the government? Like, do we really want our government to be Twitterized? These are questions that I want to look at. And then the question of sleuthing as entertainment, which comes down to the question of why do we love serial killers? Like what is that about? Over the course of the story, I want to get into the issue of respecting victims. And then the question of, I think for our main characters, not having to save the world, not having to make your life perfect. There's a lot of ideas currently rampant in our culture about optimizing and about changing the world. And these may be goals that should not be taken as ultimate. that the idea that we should optimize everything, I'm not sure that there is an optimum of everything. And even if there is, maybe that crowds out some other things. So I think maybe optimizing is something you have to wonder about, and especially the question of how much are we responsible to hunt down killers on the internet and find them and confront them and risk our lives. So those are some of the themes. So when you say philosophical stakes, I would say at the moment, let's talk. The philosophical stakes, I believe that the philosophical stakes suggest that there's a philosophical debate being enacted, which is not my intention and is not required for every story. I believe each character or each theme is enacted and at stake in its sense. In other words, these questions are going to be raised, and I'm going to play out my momentary answers. They don't have to be my truthful life answers. I always have to stick by what I said in one piece of work. But I do want to, if I raise a question, I want to come down on my take on it. And that take might be ambivalent. I wrote a script, which I'll talk about some other time in more detail, in which one character was saying our ultimate responsibility in life is to take care of ourselves and live our little lives. We're not responsible to save the world. And the other one is like, I can't live with you if you just want to live your little life and don't care about the world. In the course of the story, these people who are married and divorced because of this issue get dragged into a whole spy comedy thriller. And by the end of the story, they've switched sides. So the one who was like, I don't want to save the world is actually planning to murder people in order to change a situation. And the one who wanted to change the world is just like, let's just hide. Let's just survive. And so it's a story of how both are true. The stakes are, this is an impossible contradiction. And the way that I ended it was to say, yes, it's still an impossible contradiction because they just crossed sides. They now look at each other and go, oh, I'm where you were and you where I am. And that the dichotomy still is there because some dichotomies are permanent. They're part of life. Life has some things that are just a balance of do the best you can with this. So that's as far as on the philosophical stakes of those particular themes. I haven't played them out yet. I'm just writing the pilot. When I write the bigger picture overview, I will probably try to figure out a stand on some of them. But that's where I am on that. Okay, so good evening, Aaron. A Dexter-like character? No, he was a bad serial killer. He was a bad person. He's just changed. He's grown and changed. Is it fair to say that the theme is expressed in whose philosophical perspective were? Yes, kind of. I think what it's fair to say is that the ending will make a statement. And I've actually made a whole video upon this topic in which I say probably better this, which is called Theme. And so you should watch that to get my real take on this as far as what is a theme and how does it work and how does it play out. But yes, I believe whether you want it to or not, the way you end your story makes a statement about the themes that are raised. So if you are saying there's bad people in the world and by the end the hero has killed them all, you're kind of saying that's the answer. I like to raise things that are a little more complicated than that. But I think that to say the philosophical perspective sort of wins in the end, I would just say it backwards. It's that the theme is expressed in whose philosophical, kind of, yeah, kind of. That's a weird way for me to say it because for me the philosophical perspective is in the theme, not the other way around. But yes, basically, absolutely yes. Okay, so can I speak to the country? I'm going to take a pause on this one because I want to write my script a little bit. So let me do that, and then I will get back to it. Science Year, if you're still here, please remind me in about half an hour if I have not gotten back to it, which I think I will. Please give me a little nudge and say, hey, remember you promised, and I did. Okay. No. All right. So a lot of this is just stuff that it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing that. I can take it out. All right. So these are now the things I want to talk about. Okay. But I'm going to now break this scene down because like I said, I'm clinging to stuff in this scene that is just not that important. Okay, the first thing we need to deal with is meet Elms. Unexpectedly pissy. he's unexpectedly mad. Mad. At. Mad. There we go. At, not and, you idiot. There, make a good joke and spell it wrong. That'll teach you. Okay, so he's unexpectedly mad at Mad. This is crucial. This is a big deal. I need to make this like super important. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make it like bright pink. There we go. Hi, Matthew. All right, so the first thing we have to do is meet him, right? Then she shows up, and really the first thing that they need to talk about is topic: who George was to Matt. Because I know, I've read the rest of the script, but in the audience, all they know is she's got this husband. Like the last thing we saw was she said, my husband is dead. She said, the other woman says, you're not married. She says, I was 30 years ago. And that's interesting. That's what we need. That's going to be the question. Like when people see this scene and they're like meeting this woman and she is turning down a promotion and seems pretty happy with her life. And then all of a sudden she says, my husband was murdered. We're going to say, I want to know more about that, please. Why, who, what? What's going on here with this husband that she hasn't seen in 30 years? So that's, yeah. And so turns out he just never changed, never fixed. Now the thing is, she can't say will. Never changed the paperwork. We got divorced. He's never updated his paperwork. That's it. That's the answer. You see, it's that he never updated his paperwork. He didn't change his next of kin. So that's really important. Last I see, this is it. This is vital to get in there. The other thing is we have to recognize that this means that George has no other immediate family, which happens. I mean, let's face it. If he's an only child and his parents are dead, yeah, that could easily be it. Yeah. So I haven't seen George in 30 years is essentially taken care of with last time I saw George, I was 19 years old. And maybe the year. Okay. So, he was never very big on paperwork. There you go. See, now it's a better line. He was never very big on paperwork. Which is fun because we know that she's good in their office at paperwork. Hello, Larry. What's my opinion on storytelling versus writing? No, I wouldn't agree. My opinion is storytelling and writing kind of the same thing. I mean, let's put it this way. You can do storytelling without writing. You could sit around a campfire and tell a story. In theory, there is a version in which you are writing. Even if you're improvising it, you're writing as you go along. But let's say writing is the writing down of stuff. So storytelling does not require writing. Writing does not require storytelling. You could write down stuff that's not a story. So essentially, I think what it really comes down to is, why is it a question of verses? Really, storytelling and writing is, if you are writing a story, you need both. You need to tell the story, and you need to put it into words that will be comprehensible to the reader that you're intending. So there's like a craft of writing, but there's also a craft of storytelling. Different people have different understandings of how you would tell a story, how you would narratively do that. So that's my personal take is, I don't see a versus. I see two things you need to understand and have skill at in order to do the thing of telling a story in writing. Does that make sense? I think it does. I think that was good. Yeah, storytelling. I mean, you can tell storytelling visually. Like, you could just do. In fact, there's a guy named Scott McCloud did a graphic novel, which large section called The Sculptor. Large sections of which don't have words at all, but you still see the story. A silent movie has storytelling without writing. Yeah, but especially graphic novels now. There's so many graphic novels that tell a story through the visuals, and so many games often do that. There's lots of things that do it. So the question is, storytelling is an art and a craft, and writing is an art and a craft, and sometimes you want to do them both at the same time, but they're just independent arts. Okay. So look, I'm making progress here. When was the last time you spoke to Mr. Roisman? I see. If you disagree, cool. I don't mind. And please explain if you see the verses. Do you think scenes can be too simple? No, not at all. It depends. Sometimes you want them to be simple. Sometimes you want them to be sort of craftily complex. There's no absolute rule about that. Now, first of all, if all scenes are alike, if they're all simple or all complicated, that will be hard to sit through. We expect dynamics. We expect change. If we have been indoors for a long time, we want to get outdoors. Even famously, for instance, 12 Angry Men, a movie which takes place entirely in one room, entirely in one afternoon. And yet, now and then, they go to the window to get out. They even go to the bathroom. They move to different parts of the room to get out. And I think that the idea is, whatever you're doing, there's a variety of shapes, of pieces of this language. If you are, sometimes if it's something small, you can just hit the same note over and over again and be done. But to me, anything that stays absolutely the same all the way through its length, story-wise, is going to be poor storytelling and writing. Because we expect, life is not like that. Life is not unified and pure. Life is full of complexity. And so we're used to, if it's been quiet for a while, you want something a little louder. If it's loud for a while, you want to calm down and be quiet for a while. You want what they call dynamics, range, variety. So therefore, some scenes should be simple and some scenes should be complicated. Also, I usually oversimplifying the scene won't slow the story down. If anything, it'll speed it up too much. Once things are simple, they move fast. Okay. So now here's so the first topic is going to be Madeline telling him about their marriage, and later, he still is next to Ken. He's never there. George he was never big on paperwork. That's not bad. So then, okay, so this is interesting. This is when we talk about beats. This is the endlessly controversial and confusing thing that I talk about, the beats of a story. In other words, this scene is a scene in which Madeline shows up to the crime scene, the detective is there, they discuss a few things, and he leaves. That's the scene. Within that scene, there are sections, subsections, movements, if you will. I call those beats. That is different from a dialogue beat, in parentheses, which means small pause. What I mean here is I am outlining the stages, the steps of this scene. Okay, so the first step is we meet Elms. He's there. She shows up. And then I've got the hiccups, excuse me. Mad asks about George's life. Because here's the thing. Partly I want to get, like, once again, we're saying to the audience, there's a person here. We saw him die. Now a main character is coming in, or we're finding out that this woman is the main character, not that guy who died. And she needs to know about his life. It's an opportunity for the audience to understand a little bit more about what he was, what he did. And so that seems to be cool that she asks about his, and Elms would know. Which leads to, naturally, okay, which leads him, when he's talking about George, to the fact that he's mad. Because George was the other topic that I think is really valuable here is that Elms is really pissed at him for being a web sleuth. That's very important, and it's also, that's the heart of Elms's character. Then that leads to Elms is just prepping to give the case away. And then Mad is planning to get out ASAP. That's really interesting. Okay, so these are the beats. And that's all there is. This is, if I can't get it into these beats, I cannot, it's not in the scene, because this is the scene. I can see that. Elms. Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, luckily you don't have to watch me drink 12 sips of water or something. They seem to have gone away. Okay, look, I've got a plan. I have the beats. the beats of this scene. Boom. Look at that. Now we can go back. All right, look at this. And now I can go back to that question I promised. Can I speak to the contradictions between writing for different media? Such a giant question. Giganzo. Let's talk. Contradictions. I'm not sure if it is contradictions, but it is. It is different to write for different media. That I think is legit. That is a truth that should be spoken. If you're writing, this actually sort of coolly relates to the storytelling versus writing thing, because essentially there are elements of different media and different arts that cross over or show up in more than one media. So therefore, radio drama and filmmaking will actually share certain components with theater, less with novels, but a little bit. So I think the first thing to do is say that the media, the number of media that you can write for is infinite, or create for. I mean, there's so many, not really infinite, but big. And therefore, the first thing I would say is I am only teaching about narrative, about storytelling, made up stories, basically, but not really. I mean, you could story tell a true story. But for purposes of keeping me sane, I am only talking here about telling stories through various media. So therefore, the question is, how many are there and what are the differences? I mean, you've got, like I said, theater, fiction, written like prose fiction. You've got radio or audio or podcast now is a narrative form. You have games, you have graphic novels, you have movies, you have streaming shows, you have web series, which are very similar, but actually because of the construction of a web series, it could be like smaller. So the answer would be every single one of them has its requirements. And actually, I think that this is really important. I forgot how this works. The business, the art. Now, I think this is going to not be as easy to do as I think, but let's see. Okay, so we have 3 main elements that you're going to be dealing with. So, look at that. Okay. Can I get the technology on one line without getting the art on the business line? Let's see. I'm going to just be a little fussy here. Can't make it any bigger. Okay. Oh, look at that. Okay. These are the elements that I believe most that you have to navigate while figuring out how you write for a specific media, because the technology is going to require, for instance, podcast storytelling, no visuals. The technology is saying you don't have that part of the language, so therefore you've got to put everything into sound and vocal performance and interaction between character in a spoken way. You can't hear what they're thinking. You can't see their expressions. So that's very different than, for instance, writing a fiction, writing a novel, in which case you can go in and out of their heads, and you can be inside their thoughts. They don't even have to say anything. Like it's possible to write a piece of fiction where no one ever speaks. That would be a very bad podcast. So the point about this is that the technology strictly creates the form. However, the business further twists what you can and can't do in certain ways. For instance, if it costs, like filmmaking for a long time was very expensive, so therefore you needed to be able to raise the amount of money needed to purchase the equipment and all the stuff. That meant that only certain types of stories could be told because only certain types of people would put money into them. If, as weirdly happens now and then, somebody was talking about the John Travolta movie that he made, the sort of Scientology sci-fi film, which was a case where the business end of that wasn't really running it. It was really more the social group or religion or business, depending on what you think Scientology is, financed it. They didn't finance it. It was financed to further that cause, not to make money, which is a good thing because it didn't make any money. Anyway, the point is, if a certain type of story attracts the people who allow you business-wise to create or distribute it, that influences it unless you can find some way around the business. So there's the technology thing, the business thing, and then the art of it is a whole other area where the aspirations of the art, the visions of the art, may be in, all these things can be in conflict with each other. And what you need to do in order to figure out your media, whichever one you're in, is to know those three elements. Like the art of filmmaking is vast. You can do dreamlike stories in which narrative doesn't enter at all. However, business-wise, that's going to be a problem. Technologically, it's not a problem, certainly anymore. But even at the beginning, I mean, the first silent films often were very dreamlike. So yeah. Sanity is overrated. Yes and no. Creatively, yes. Personally, no. I would vote for it helps. It helps. It helps to be a little crazy, but it really helps not to be too crazy. Okay. Sports can be stories. Well, we just went from one to the other. Wrestling is literally fiction. That's not necessarily true. It depends on whether you're talking about pro wrestling or actual. There is actually a sport of wrestling, which is not narrative, which is actually a sport. So anyway, oh, look at this. Sarah knows stuff about I will take a look at that. That is interesting. I'm going to actually just grab a screen cap of that so that I don't forget it. Thank you, Sarah. All right. So science here, the basic thing I would say about that is every medium has its own strengths and weaknesses and requirements. And therefore, anyone working in any medium, you're required to care about that. Yeah, if you don't say you're, if you say you want to be a filmmaker, but you don't really care about how films are made, go somewhere else. Don't talk to me, certainly. If you don't care about the art of that technology, once again, I don't see how you can do it. I mean, I suppose you can if you were purely business and technology, but and realistically, although it depends, like if you are super rich or the technology is super cheap, you can just say, screw the business. If you want to make a film on your phone and edit it yourself and then put it onto YouTube, and if you don't care that possibly no one will see it, you're in business. That's great. So, but which, by the way, I heartily endorse. I believe that is a good use of your time. Just like I'm about to, when I get done with this teaching thing, I'm going to be writing a novel, which I don't have. I mean, now I've got, 6,000 people who might be interested. But other than that, 20, 30 people might want to read it. I don't know. We'll see. You can't overly worry about that when you're being creative. So that's my main thing. I would say that there is not a conflict between medium. There's a conflict between parts of every medium. And then any two mediums are going to share certain qualities and be distinctly different on them. Battlefield Earth. Yes. Yeah. It's something. Thank you, Colin. And by the way, nice to meet you. Thank you. Injuries are real too. Okay. That is true. That is absolutely true. David Lynch's philosophy in health and clarity and a sound mind. Yes, I like most of David Lynch's philosophy. I mean, some of it you have to be David Lynch to get away with, because David Lynch was lucky that his very, very artistic choices got rewarded financially and therefore allowed for him to pursue them in ways that ordinarily you would not be able to do. So he's got he tends to not realize that everyone can't get what he's got, can't do what he can do, because like not everyone not everyone can go to Showtime and say, I want to write something completely irrational, the new Twin Peaks. Say, I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it the way I want. If you don't like it, screw you. And have Showtime go, okay. That was a close call for him, frankly. He's in a very lucky position. And so some of his advice is sometimes like, just, follow your dreams and they'll pay off. Maybe, maybe not. But I believe that he's right to say follow them, because even if they don't pay off, as in Showtime doesn't buy your stuff, it pays off because you did it, because you did this thing, and maybe you never know where it will go, especially if you're very open to the possibilities. Okay, once again, I am just not writing my damn script. Okay, let's get to this. So now I can do this. Now I can write this scene. All right, so... sorry about that. Okay. All right, and now the reason I did this, because everyone's going to say, why'd you do that? I did this purely to not have everything buried. I hope you mean yes. I hope you mean segue like transition. If so, that's it. If you meant the thing you ride on, I don't have one, and I'm waiting to see which you meant. Okay, so here's the deal. I have and this kind of relates. Oh man, everything's relating. Here's the thing. If I cut this, I have a completely legitimate paragraph. The garage door is rolled up so he can see Madeline ducking the crime scene tape and dragging her wheeled carry-on past a police car, a crime scene van, a local news van, and up the weed-strewn driveway. A little more ands than I would like. However, the thing about this is that there's just too much information in here for me to expect someone to get it. And so I simply put this break in so that we can see the separate things at a time. And essentially, what I was just trying to do was say, understand, he's looking out at Madeline and she's coming and she's walking past all this stuff. I wanted to just establish the local news van because later on, at the end of the episode, Deakins is going to say, I saw this on the news. So I wanted to make sure that we established that it was news. That's all this is about. And honestly, it couldn't turn out that a producer would later say, we need to see it being on the news or something. And you know what? That's not a bad idea that we could maybe look into. But for the moment, okay. So now... so now we get to the next question of this scene, which is, would Elms called her or had someone call her because they found her name in his papers, and they called, and at the time, and her name is Morrison. It's not Roisman. So I don't think he would make this mistake. I think he would say, Mrs. Roisman. But I don't think he'd say Mrs. Roy. Would he say Mrs. Morrison? No. Mrs. Morrison. So this is going to be... So maybe I'm going to go back to... Thank you, Ace Aristocat. I appreciate that. So what I want to establish I'm thinking about putting back in that there's a bit that I rather liked, where he says, "Are you all right?" She says, "Not even a little bit." It's just a good exchange of dialogue. I just hate having to describe the thing that makes her say that, which is that she's walking up the driveway with her carry-on and it's all like bumpy, and so it's not dragging properly. So, I don't know. That's not a bad idea, though. But we still have to get to Ms. Morrison. Yeah. Or could I just say that he thinks of her as Mrs. Roisman because they're divorced? Divorced people. Well, I don't know. My mom got divorced from my dad, and she kept his last name even in the divorce. So kept his last name in the divorce, like it's valuable. No, I meant that she didn't change her name back to her maiden name. People, so it could be. But I do like when was the last time you spoke to Ms. Morrison? Yeah, let's just make it Ms. Morrison. Ms. Morrison. I don't like hoarder like. Yeah, I really like that too. Okay, so let me see here. So that's the line I liked. Detective Elms. You're Miss Morrison. Ken, Morrison. You're next to Ken. Kind of like that. You're next to Ken, Morrison. Yeah, I see. What I want here is the idea that Elms is not particularly nice or friendly, or he's gruff. Elms. You're next to Ken, Morrison. Okay, this is getting better. This is getting better. It's not getting shorter, but it's getting better. I'll get to the shorter part some other time. Okay, so I had to look up segue. Yeah, that's because segue as a segue, which is a brand name for a device that you ride on, is a play on or a reference to or something, a French-derived verb segue, which means transition from one topic to another. Okay. This is better. We're getting somewhere. When was the last time you spoke to Mr. Roseman? Okay, so quick math issue. Let's see. If she was 19. Okay, hold on. Let me 2 minus 30 would be, let's say 1992. Okay. Okay. CBGB's in New York. All right. Okay. Finally, if your goal is to write a script that's 60 pages, 60 minutes, what if you miss the mark? What if it's 61? Answer is they will cut off my head and put it on the battlements of Disney Studios. No, the answer is nothing terrible will happen. The answer is it will. If somebody reads it, first of all, they'll be just a little bit less interested in reading it, but they'll probably get over that if it's only a page or two. If you get to like 5 pages over, you're starting to push to where people are like, do I want to read this? And the answer is, you'll simply, first of all, you'll get a note the note will be, you know, you have to cut this down, right? But otherwise, there's no, if it's one page, it's not going to be a big deal. Frankly, I mean, the most people try and go a little under because they know, everyone in the business knows writing expands when you film it. Famously, if you hear about any director talking about the first cut of their movie, it's always like an hour too long, half hour too long. They're always like, my first cut of this is, 2.5 hours. It always is too long. And then they have to cut it. So if you start with a script that's really pushing the outside envelope of time, you're going to make it hard for them to edit. So therefore, it is considered polite. Like if you're writing a feature, you probably want to come in around 100 to 110. A pilot, 55 to 60 is okay. Plus or minus 5%, you mean in terms of page count? Not really. Honestly, the number is the outside count generally. If you're saying 120 for a feature, that's kind of long, depending on the contents and how it's written. If there's a lot of dialogue, sometimes it because of the layout of the page, dialogue tends to actually take more space, but often takes longer. You can write a single page of action that will actually take 5 minutes because of the chasing and exploding. So the answer is, in general, make the actual number, like 60 pages for an hour, make that the outside limit if you're really trying to be a professional. On the other hand, if you hand it in and it's 5 pages long, they'll just say, this is you're going to have to cut something. But that's okay. Sometimes you're like, I knew that, but I wanted you to see the full, rich truth of it all. So yeah, that seems good. Let's see, Ace Aristocrat. Let's see. I think I'm going to stop here. Any useful tips for mystery writing? Well, you're in luck. There are like a billion how-tos on mystery writing. My personal take is, first of all, you mean mystery movies, series, books, because they'll all be slightly different. But the main thing is, find in that tradition the examples you like best. That is the first thing. And then you watch my video, take art apart, and you do what that says, which is, like, if you've got a mystery that you really like, there's a really great mystery which Rian Johnson is now kind of making Knives Out 2, kind of an homage to, called Last of Sheila. It's a great mystery about this bunch of rich Hollywood folks who take this cruise in the Mediterranean, and they all start getting knocked off, and it's like, whodunit? Literally, whodunit? But that's one kind of mystery. Another kind of mystery is kind of a hard-boiled detective, where somebody comes to a detective and says, hey, a bad thing happened, I need you to fix it. That's a different type of mystery. So you need to figure out what kind of mystery you like, what model you're working on. And then you need to break down what's the tradition of that. Like Last of Sheila was in the tradition of Agatha Christie, group of people, Murder on the Orient Express, a bunch of people, and there's been a crime or a series of crimes, and they have to solve it because they're, for some reason, trapped or locked. The main thing about mysteries is there is an incredible tradition of writing about how you do mysteries. There's whole books about it. There's famously Raymond Chandler wrote a great essay called The Simple Art of Murder about how Raymond, by the way, if you're writing detectives, Chandler, Hammett, do not miss. There's a great mystery by Rian Johnson, his first movie called Brick with Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's a hard-boiled detective story, but set in a California public high school. It's a remarkable little piece. Anyway, movies, a feature film script should be no longer than 120 pages. Mystery novels. Yeah, okay, cool. Sherlock Holmes. Excellent. There you go. Start to look into the Sherlock Holmes tradition. The detective tradition that came out of Holmes is vast. One of my favorite detective stories is a thing called The Big Fix with Richard Dreyfuss from the 1970s. It's about a former 60s radical who's become a private eye. It's great. Oh, cool. But there's also famously, there's a thing called The 7% Solution, which was a book and then became a movie in which Sherlock Holmes goes to Sigmund Freud for analysis because of his cocaine addiction. So it's a mystery and a psychology. It's a blast. Anyway, yay, amazing, cool. Yes, 120 for a feature. The Killing. You mean the Kubrick killing? Yeah. That's a fascinating thing. That was very. The Killing is highly influential, especially to Reservoir Dogs. Reservoir Dogs wouldn't exist without The Killing. And The Killing, yeah, it's a blast. Also, by the way, if you like, I'm going to just put some of these down here. There is a movie directed by Sidney Lumet. You want to see a great crime film like The Killing, but in some ways I think better. It's just the characters are so terrific. The Anderson Tapes. Sean Connery, Christopher Walken, I think his first movie. Martin Balsam. It's just fabulous. Anyway, that I would suggest. Yeah. So the answer is mysteries. You will have no shortage of how-to stuff, which, you can take it or leave it. But if you go on any how-to, like writer's website, if you go into, or just like Google, how to write a mystery novel, you will find tons of how-to articles in, and there's a thing called Crime Reads. Hold on. This is actually a biggie. There's a website called Crime Reads. A friend of mine has written a couple of detective novels, and he's done a little. Check that out, Crime Reads. It's a website, and it gets into the various types and genres of crime stories. And yes, indeed, so much to check out. And Giallo films, yes. Exactly. There's so many interwoven layers to any genre. So, yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, the Anderson Tapes book is really fascinating because it's done entirely in transcripts. The conceit is that everybody involved in this case was, for one reason or another, being secretly recorded. One person, it's because their wife wants to divorce, and so they're trying to the private detective is trying to get evidence against them for a divorce. Another one, it's a gangster, and the government is taping them. So the point is, this entire caper is caught on tape, literally, but only on audio tape. So the entire book is in tape transcripts. It's fabulous, and one of my favorite movies. I just love it. Anyway, adding stakes. Okay, this is going to be the last one, folks. Okay, let me just do a quick screen. This is a big topic, good big topic. Adding stakes. There's real danger, but feel intimidated trying to write anything with real stakes. I can take. No, I'll do this one, and then I'm going to go. Stakes. What's really interesting about stakes is yes, you can always add the stakes of there's a nuclear missile going to go off, you have to stop it. You can always add life or death, someone's going to kill someone. Those are external stakes. You'd be amazed how much they don't work. Like, to a certain extent, we don't really worry too much that the nuclear bomb's going to go off, which is why when they do, it's always like a real shock. In Failsafe, for instance. But, spoiler. But I mean, that's kind of the point. Failsafe. Anyway, the point is, what's really important is the stakes matter to the character. I often talk about the fact that in Zombieland, which is a pretty well constructed script, and in Zombieland, all Woody Harrelson's character wants is some Twinkies. Okay, they're facing the zombie apocalypse, but what matters to him is he wants to find some damn Twinkies, because it's what it really means is a connection to the lost world, a connection to the life that's gone. Just like in Jesse Eisenberg's character, I can't remember his name. He really wants, he's not talking about, he wants to meet a woman and brush the hair back off her face, because essentially what he's saying is he wants romantic and loving connection with someone. He wants to have a tender and meaningful relationship. But what he specifically says is he just wants to do this thing where you push your hair. So the point is, the stakes can be, essentially being eaten by a zombie, but what matters is something else. And that's really important. What's important is, like, in a high school comedy, it's will I or will I not get to talk to this girl at the party? That's the stakes. And that is life or death for that character. So the important thing is that you scale your stakes and then you express them through the character's need, through the characters having something that they want. Yes, obviously, stakes can be increased by something that you fear, but that's kind of a cheesy producer's way of thinking, a marketing way of thinking. It's like, we have to increase the stakes by having somebody coming after him with a machete. It kind of numbs you out to the stakes. The stakes aren't personal then. What's really at stake is something personal and meaningful to that character, and the scale of them will not matter. The audience will accept any stakes. They are totally into Superbad whether or not these guys are going to get laid at the party. Okay? And honestly, if you just said those are stakes, you'd be like, yeah, who cares? But they matter because, I mean, if you like Superbad. If you don't like Superbad, it seems stupid. But likewise, if you're in Halloween and there's a guy coming around chopping you up, it seems like those stakes are powerful, but the truth is, if you're not engaged with those characters and you don't like that genre, it's meaningless. You don't care. It's like, yeah, let them get chopped up. Who cares? What makes stakes matters is the way that they matter to the character and how the creators of the story make us understand and know and focus on that stake. Rocky, famously, the stakes were don't fall down. All right. He's like, I'm not going to win this fight. This is not a spoiler. I mean, it's a spoiler, but you should know this. In Rocky 1, this loser, lowlife, wannabe boxer, like low quality boxer, is put up against the world champion for various political reasons of the politics of boxing of the champ. And Rocky's goal is, I just want to be on my feet at the end of this. I'm going to lose, but I want to be on my feet. That's so moving because you only because he explains it. If he didn't say, I have this simple goal within this larger contest. The contest is not mine. The contest was put on me by other people for their reasons, but I have a personal thing that I think I can do that's going to be hard to do. The other thing that makes stakes really, really important is that they're hard to do. For example, in the recent movie Kimi, Kimi, it's a Steven Soderbergh update of Rear Window with some twists to it. Agoraphobia. She is afraid to leave her loft. So therefore, going out of the loft is high stakes. Opening that door and stepping out into the street is extremely high stakes. For the rest of us, we go, yeah, okay, I'm going to go across the street. Cool. So the important thing is that you establish that it is hard for the person and why. Make that convincing. And then the stakes can be literally, I need to get out of the house. So there you go. Okay, we're winding down. Okie dokie, yes. Internal versus external stakes, kinda, yeah. I would say, yes, because, but it can be external stakes that are totally personal. Like, I don't want to be killed by the serial killer. Cool. That's, both. Versus philosophical stakes, yeah, I would say there's always all three. There's always got to be an externalization of the internal stakes. They don't have to be different. Sometimes you get these writing teachers who are like, you have to have an external stakes and an internal stakes. They could be the same thing. The external stakes can have an internal meaning, or vice versa. The internal stakes can have an external signal, like crossing the threshold of your door. And likewise, all of those things have a philosophical dimension if you want to think about it. And if you want to think about it and put it into your script, even better. Okay. I want to include a low-stakes police procedural to help populate the town I want the audience to care about. I don't entirely understand that. I think that may be a language problem of I want to include. You certainly can. Yeah, like what you're saying is absolutely right. You can. You want the audience to care about. I think I understand that, but I'm not sure I do. But it sounds good to me. I like sci-fi, which has a lot of world-ending stakes. Easy to forget that in those terms. Yes, exactly. If somebody, honestly, I got to say that, there's a lot of things where like a world is ending, and it's like, who cares? But if you could get character, like I don't personally think the movie Don't Look Up was very good. However, there are a few moments towards the end where you're watching people watch the end of the world, where the stakes are rather nicely put, so cool, yay. Okay, you are welcome, guys. I'm gonna go. See you tomorrow. I think tomorrow I'm not gonna write, but maybe I will because it's going well. In the meantime, go write something.